Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Speak English for Beginners. I'm Emma, and I'm very happy you are spending some time with us today.
And I'm Jack. Whether you are listening at home, driving somewhere, taking a walk, or relaxing after a busy day, we hope you feel comfortable and ready to practice some English with us.
Today, we are talking about a skill that can completely change the way you communicate in English.
Yes, our topic today is how to make interesting conversation in English, especially when you want to speak naturally and keep a conversation going.
This episode is designed for B1 to B2 learners, so we will use natural English, useful expressions, and longer conversations, but we will still explain important ideas clearly.
And remember, you don't have to understand every single word. Try to follow the main ideas, notice useful phrases, and enjoy the conversation.
Before we begin, Jack, I have a question for you. Have you ever been in a conversation where you suddenly had absolutely nothing to say?
Oh, definitely. And when that happens, 5 seconds of silence can feel like 5 minutes.
Exactly. You start thinking, quick, say something interesting. But the more pressure you feel, the harder it becomes to think of anything.
And then sometimes you ask the safest question possible, like, so, do you like the weather?
Which can work, but if that is your third question about the weather, you may be in trouble.
True. But this is actually an important point. Interesting conversation does not mean you always need an amazing topic.
Yes, you don't need to talk about philosophy, world travel, or the meaning of life every time you meet someone.
An interesting conversation can begin with something very ordinary. The important thing is what you do after the conversation begins.
So here's a question for everyone listening. Think about the last conversation you really enjoyed.
Maybe it was with a friend, a coworker, a family member, or even someone you had just met.
What made that conversation enjoyable? Was the other person funny? Were they curious about you? Did they tell a good story?
Or maybe you simply felt that they were really listening to you.
That last point is especially important because many learners think good conversation is mainly about speaking well.
But good conversation is also about listening well.
In fact, one of the easiest ways to become more interesting in conversation is to become more interested in the other person.
I like that. Instead of thinking, how can I sound interesting, think, how can I become interested in what this person is saying?
Exactly. And one of the best ways to show interest is by asking good follow-up questions.
Let's explain what a follow-up question is. Imagine I ask Emma, what did you do this weekend?
And I say, I went hiking with some friends.
And now I could simply say, oh, nice, and stop there.
And then I would probably look at you and wait for something else.
Right. Instead, I can take something from your answer and ask another question. For example, where did you go hiking?
Then I might say, we went to a beautiful mountain area about an hour from the city.
And now I have more information. I could ask, do you go there often? Or was the hike difficult?
Or even, what was the best part of the day?
Exactly. These questions show that I am not following a list of questions in my head. I'm actually listening to your answer.
And that makes conversation feel natural instead of feeling like an interview.
That interview feeling is something English learners sometimes experience. They learn useful questions like, where are you from? What do you do? And what are your hobbies?
Those questions are perfectly useful, but if you ask them one after another without reacting to the answers, the conversation can feel strange.
Let's demonstrate. Emma, where are you from?
I'm from Canada.
What do you do?
I teach English.
What are your hobbies?
Wait, Jack. I feel like I'm filling out a form.
Exactly. There is nothing grammatically wrong with those questions, but there is no connection between them.
Now let's make the same conversation more natural.
Okay. Emma, where are you from?
I'm from Canada.
Oh, nice. Did you grow up there?
Yes, I did, although I have lived in a few different places since then.
Really? Which place did you enjoy living in the most?
That's difficult. I lived near the ocean for a while, and I loved being able to walk along the beach after work.
That sounds great. Are you the kind of person who really enjoys being near nature?
Definitely. I feel much more relaxed when I can spend some time outside.
See? We started with one very basic question, but the conversation naturally moved from Canada to different places, then to the ocean, and finally to nature.
And neither person needed to plan the whole conversation.
That is one of the secrets of natural conversation. Listen for small details that you can explore.
Think of those details as little doors. When someone gives you an interesting detail, you can open that door with another question.
For example, if someone says, "I had dinner with my sister yesterday," there are several doors you could open.
You could ask, "Where did you go?" Or, "Do you see your sister often?"
If they say, "I'm learning how to cook," you could ask, "What are you learning to make?"
And if they say, "Work has been really busy recently," you could ask, "What has been keeping you so busy?"
Notice that these questions are connected directly to what the person just said.
Another useful technique is asking open questions instead of questions that only need a yes or no answer.
For example, instead of asking, "Did you enjoy your vacation?" you could ask, "What did you enjoy most about your vacation?"
Instead of, "Do you like your job?" you might ask, "What do you like most about your job?"
And instead of, "Was the movie good?" you could ask, "What did you think of the movie?"
Open questions usually give the other person more space to speak.
But there is something important here. You should not ask question after question forever.
Yes, because conversation needs balance. You also need to share something about yourself.
Imagine I tell Emma, "I started going to the gym recently."
I could say, "Oh, nice. What made you decide to start?"
And I might answer, "I realized I was sitting too much during the day and I wanted to have more energy."
Then, instead of immediately asking another question, I could connect your experience to my own. I might say, "I understand that. I started taking evening walks for the same reason."
Exactly. Now we both have something in the conversation.
This is a very useful pattern. Ask, listen, react, and share.
Ask, listen, react, and share. That simple pattern can make a huge difference.
Let's try another example. Jack, tell me something ordinary about your week.
Okay, yesterday I tried a new cafe near my apartment.
Oh, really? What made you decide to try it?
I had walked past it several times and it always smelled amazing, so finally I went inside.
That is a good reason. What did you order?
I ordered a coffee and a piece of chocolate cake that was much bigger than I expected.
That sounds like a very serious problem. Did you manage to finish it?
Of course, I believe in completing difficult tasks.
I respect your dedication. I actually found a little bakery near my home recently, and now I have to stop myself from going there every day.
What do they make that is so tempting?
Fresh bread and these wonderful little pastries with fruit inside.
Okay, now I'm hungry.
Me too. We should probably stop talking about food.
But notice what happened there. We began with one small comment about a cafe, and then the conversation developed because we asked questions, reacted naturally, added humor, and shared similar experiences.
Another way to make conversations more interesting is to move beyond facts and ask about opinions, feelings, and experiences.
Yes, facts can start a conversation, but opinions often give you much more to talk about.
For example, imagine someone tells you, "I visited London last year."
You could ask, "How long were you there?" That is useful, but the answer might simply be 5 days.
Instead, you could ask, "What surprised you most about London?"
Now that is interesting because the person has to think about their experience.
Or you could ask, "Would you like to go back?"
And then you can naturally ask why.
Questions with why, how, and what was it like are very useful when you want a deeper conversation.
But be careful with why. Sometimes it can sound too direct, especially with personal topics.
Right. If someone says, "I changed my job," immediately asking why might feel a little strong.
You could make it softer by saying, "What made you decide to change jobs?"
That sounds more natural and gives the person freedom to share as much as they want.
And that brings us to another important skill, noticing whether someone actually wants to continue a topic.
Exactly. Good conversation is not about forcing someone to talk.
If you ask, "How was your weekend?" and they say, "Fine," then look uncomfortable, you probably shouldn't ask 12 more questions.
Please don't become a weekend detective.
Where did you go? Who was there? What time did you arrive?
Instead, you can change the subject naturally and give them some space.
This ability to notice the other person's reactions is an important part of communication.
Now, Jack, what about situations where you meet someone new and you really don't know what to talk about?
I think many learners worry about this, especially at parties, work events, classes, or social gatherings.
A useful strategy is to begin with your shared situation.
Shared situation means something that both of you are experiencing at that moment.
For example, if you are at an event, you can ask, "How do you know the host?" If you are taking a class, you might say, "What made you choose this course?"
At work, you could ask, "Have you worked on this kind of project before?" And if you were waiting somewhere, even a simple comment about the place can begin a conversation.
The important thing is that you don't need a clever opening line.
Yes, people sometimes imagine confident speakers walking into a room and immediately saying something brilliant.
In reality, confident speakers often begin with very ordinary comments.
The difference is that they know how to develop those comments into something more interesting.
Another useful skill is giving more than a one-word answer when someone asks you a question.
This is important because keeping a conversation alive is a shared responsibility.
Let's say I ask, "Jack, do you enjoy cooking?"
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that wonderful conversation.
Sorry, let me try again. Yes, especially on weekends. During the week, I usually make simple meals, but on Saturday, I like trying something new.
Much better. Now you have given me several possible things to ask about.
You could ask what I cook on weekdays, what I made last Saturday, or why I enjoy experimenting with food.
We sometimes call this giving the other person something to work with.
You don't need a long answer. Just add one or two details.
For example, if someone asks, "Do you like traveling?" Instead of only saying yes, you could say, "Yes, especially short trips where I can explore a new city."
If someone asks, "What do you do after work?" you could say, "I usually relax at home, but recently I've started going for evening walks."
That small extra detail creates another door in the conversation.
There is also a phrase that can help when you want to return a question naturally. How about you?
Very simple, but extremely useful.
If Emma asks, "Do you enjoy working from home?" I can answer and then say, "How about you?"
That immediately brings me into the conversation, instead of keeping all the attention on you.
Another natural expression is, "What about you?"
Both are useful, and you will hear them constantly in everyday English.
Now let's talk about something many learners are afraid of: silence.
Ah, yes, the terrifying 3 seconds when nobody speaks.
Silence is actually normal. Native speakers pause too.
You do not need to fill every second with words.
And if you need time to think, you can use natural expressions such as, "That's a good question," or "Let me think."
You might also say, "I've never really thought about that before." These phrases give you a few seconds while still keeping the conversation moving.
And when you genuinely don't know what to say, you can return to something the person mentioned earlier.
For example, you mentioned that you're learning Spanish. How is that going?
This is powerful because it shows that you remembered something they said.
And people usually appreciate feeling heard and remembered.
There is also an ingredient that can make conversation much warmer: reactions.
Yes, don't only wait silently for your turn to speak. Respond to what you hear.
You can say, "Really? That sounds great. No way. That must have been difficult." Or, "I know what you mean."
Your reaction should match the situation, of course. If someone says, "I lost my phone yesterday," please don't smile and say, "That sounds great."
Unless you want the conversation to become interesting for the wrong reason.
Natural reactions show emotion and help the other person know that you are following their story.
And when you combine reactions with follow-up questions and small details from your own experience, the conversation begins to flow much more easily.
Now let's talk about another skill that can make your conversations much more interesting: telling short stories.
Yes, because sometimes an experience is more enjoyable when you describe what actually happened instead of only giving the final result.
For example, imagine I ask, Jack, how was your morning?
I could say, it was stressful.
That gives me some information, but I'm probably going to wonder what happened.
So instead, I could say, it was stressful. I woke up late, couldn't find my keys, and then realized they were in my jacket pocket the whole time.
That already sounds more interesting because now I can imagine the situation.
And unfortunately, that example is very realistic for me.
A short story does not need to be dramatic. Everyday experiences can be interesting when you include a few useful details.
You can explain where you were, what happened, how you felt, and perhaps something unexpected.
But try not to include every tiny detail.
Yes, if someone asks how your morning was, you probably don't need to explain every minute from 7:02 until lunchtime.
Choose the details that help the listener understand or enjoy the story.
Another thing that makes conversations interesting is finding common ground.
Common ground means interests, experiences, or opinions that you share with another person.
Maybe you both enjoy football, cooking, traveling, movies, technology, or learning languages.
Or perhaps you both hate waking up early.
That can create a surprisingly strong friendship.
When you discover common ground, explore it. You might say, "Really? Me too," and then add a question or personal detail.
For example, you like hiking? Me too. I started hiking a few years ago. Where do you usually go?
That feels much warmer than simply saying, "Okay."
But interesting conversations do not require agreement all the time.
Absolutely. Different opinions can make conversations interesting too, as long as we express them respectfully.
Instead of saying, you're wrong, you can say, that's interesting. I see it a little differently.
Or, "I understand your point, but my experience has been different."
Those expressions allow you to disagree without turning a friendly conversation into an argument.
Now, there is one problem we should discuss because it affects many English learners: trying to be perfect.
This can make conversations much harder than they need to be.
You may know exactly what you want to say, but then your brain starts checking everything.
Is this the correct tense? Should I use have been or was? Is my pronunciation perfect?
Meanwhile, the other person is waiting, and you are having a grammar meeting inside your head.
That is a very busy meeting.
Of course, grammar matters, and improving accuracy is useful, but real conversation also requires you to keep communicating.
If you make a small mistake but the other person understands you, the conversation can continue.
Confidence grows through experience, and experience comes from actually speaking.
So give yourself permission to use the English you have today.
And remember that you can always explain an idea in another way if you don't know the exact word.
For example, imagine you forget the word umbrella.
You could say, the thing you use when it rains.
And someone will probably say, an umbrella?
Exactly. Communication successful.
This is an important conversation skill called paraphrasing. It means expressing an idea using different words.
Now, let's review some useful ideas and vocabulary from our conversation.
First, we talked about follow-up questions. These are questions connected to something another person has just said.
We also talked about open questions, which encourage longer answers instead of only yes or no.
Another useful expression was common ground, meaning something you and another person share.
We used the word reaction, too. A reaction shows how you feel about what someone has told you.
And we talked about paraphrasing, which helps you continue speaking when you cannot remember a particular word.
Most importantly, remember our simple conversation pattern. Ask, listen, react, and share.
You can practice this pattern almost anywhere.
The next time someone tells you something, listen carefully for one detail you can ask about.
Then react naturally and share a small related detail about yourself.
You do not need to become the funniest or most exciting person in the room.
Interesting conversation is usually less about impressing people and more about creating a real connection with them.
Before we finish, think about one question you could ask someone today.
Instead of asking only, "How was your day?" perhaps ask, "What was the best part of your day?"
Instead of, "Did you have a good weekend?" try, "What did you get up to this weekend?"
Small changes like these can create much richer conversations.
And if you are practicing English, choose one useful phrase from today's episode and try to use it in a real conversation.
You can even practice by speaking to yourself first. It may feel funny, but it works.
And nobody needs to know about the excellent conversations you are having with yourself.
Unless you start arguing with yourself, then we may have questions. Thank you for spending this time with us on Speak English for Beginners.
Keep listening, keep speaking, and remember that every conversation is a chance to improve.
Be curious, listen carefully, share your ideas, and don't be afraid of small mistakes. The more real conversations you have, the more natural your English will become. See you soon.